All right, go ahead and roll for perception.
I got a 13.
Hey, that's pretty good. With that, you can tell there's some fantasy situations going on. You hear some adult language, and with that, you can tell this podcast probably isn't for kids. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons & Dragons, from mighty minotaurs to magical marionettes. And this week, we're talking about goblins.
It's Goblin time.
Yeah.
Prepare yourselves.
I cast Fireball. The Dungeoncast.
I take it they live in caves.
Yeah. Actually, goblins do tend to live in caves. They like to live usually underground, but very, very close to the surface. That's usually their habitat of choice.
Yeah, I've noticed that like in most campaigns that I've seen, goblins get thrown in like kind of toward the beginning.
Yeah, that's actually it's very, very common when it comes to goblins. Goblins are a mythological creature, much like dragons, that I think are just very familiar, at least in the Western Hemisphere of the world. They just seem to be scattered and smattered about pretty much fiction all over the place. Tolkien has goblins, or orcs, really, and that's the thing about Tolkien.
Yeah, is there a difference? There's not, right?
There is not.
Not in
there
that
is not.
realm. In the D&D world.
In the D&D world, there's a huge difference, and I'm not sure who took from what. Like okay, so Tolkien's goblins or orcs are kind of like they remind me of like an in-between of like orcs and goblins from D&D.
Okay.
While the Uruk-hai from Tolkien's work, the ones that Saruman created, those are fucking orcs, man. Those are like orcs from D&D straight up, and I think that's awesome. But I don't know like where D&D decided to deviate from Tolkien's work when it comes to goblins, but they did. It's probably has to do with like goblins come from like old European folklore, like old stories of like demons and even like fae stuff, which is important to point out because a lot of times goblins will be tied to the fae sometimes, not usually. I think it's more common for them to be like in the prime material world.
Yeah, I didn't think. I always think of goblins as like they like to hoard, probably. Like
yeah, they do.
Yeah, they collect stuff and keep underground.
They're
for their own devices.
Greedy little guys. So I mean, the most common depiction of goblins is they're green, they're small. That's a very important characteristic. They're usually the size of about halflings, pointy ears, pointy teeth, and they're just nasty little creatures a lot of time. And there's
like evil generally, right?
Generally evil. But I mean, goblins are a really cool monster and or species because like I've seen them so many different iterations of them, and I think one of the coolest things about them compared to a lot of more monstery monsters is they're actual people, like an actual society.
Oh yeah, when you say monstery monsters, you mean more like a beast, right?
Yeah, more like monstrosities, like like a chimera or a wyvern.
Because goblins like hold society.
Yeah, they have a society technically. Well, and they don't have to. Like I've seen goblins where they're just like feral, really unintelligent, nasty creatures. But I've seen them completely different from that, to the point where I think goblins are not entirely widely accepted, but pretty widely accepted as actual player character races a lot of the time. Like people usually find goblins endearing sometimes when it comes to running them as PCs. What were you going to say?
What was the difference between the orcs and like I'm thinking about the Hobbit right now.
Okay.
All those what were those in the first part of the Hobbit?
Okay, those were goblins, but also orcs. Like, so Peter Jackson decided to take it upon himself to make a difference, even though there was never really a difference.
Yeah, because it was in the movie, it was clear that it was different, but in the book, like in
the books, they're the same thing. Like, just
I thought about what happened in the movie.
Hobbits call them goblins. Like,
okay, yeah.
And that part of the world just called them goblins. Gondor and them were used to calling them orcs.
Okay.
And they talk about it a little bit in the books, that it's just a different word for the same thing. They're the same creature.
Right.
There is no difference.
Except there is now.
Except for, well, I mean, I guess when it comes to the movies, but like
in the movie universe,
I don't like to consider the Hobbit movies canon to the Lord of the Rings universe if I can help it. I don't care if Orlando Bloom was in them. But yeah, so Peter Jackson took it upon himself to make them, and he did. He made them more goblin-like. where he made them smaller, except for the Goblin King, who's very big and fat, and just all around more goblin-y. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on what it was that made them more goblin-y, but they seemed more like D&D Goblin-esque.
Yeah, they're not like trying to go out ever. They're trying to stay in their cave.
Yeah, you know. I mean, orcs dwell in the darkness too. In
yeah, but
Tolkien's
I mean, in the Tolkien universe, they like get sent on missions, so it's a little different, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. But also remember that The Hobbit takes place before Sauron has really started making moves, so they're not well organized like they are in The Lord of the Rings. But getting back to the topic at hand, goblins. Goblins belong to a monster category known as goblinoids. They are not the only goblins; they're just the most common of goblins. The other two creatures that belong to the goblinoid families are hobgoblins, which are bigger, meaner, smarter, and red rather than green.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, they're usually decked out in some armor.
Yeah, they're
the art I've seen.
Very military-esque.
Oh,
They usually worship some sort of deity of like tyranny and war and military stuff. And then bugbears are the biggest and meanest probably of the goblinoid families.
I did not know that bugbears are
they're goblins.
Goblin
yeah,
in
they're
origin.
goblinoids. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And they're big, heavy-set creatures. Very, very feral. The least intelligent, probably. We're not really going to talk too much about hobgoblins and bugbears, except for we'll probably get a little bit into like how hobgoblins and bugbears affect regular goblin society when they're there versus when they're not there.
Okay, because they're separlet from like normal goblin society. I would assume.
Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're all
they're just
very
involved.
intermingled.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Goblinoid society can happen in many different ways. But one of the biggest reasons I don't want to touch too much on them is hobgoblins, more so than bugbears, definitely deserve their own episode because there's a lot of lore and stuff there with hobgoblins. And
if they're militarized like that, they probably got a lot of like social things going on.
Exactly, and they're just there's so much lore, and they're so different from like your regular goblin. There's a reason they're not all under goblin in the monster manual. Hobgoblins got their own section, and so do bugbears. I think they do. Yeah, off the top of my head. So back to goblins. So we talked about their physical characteristics most commonly. Let's also talk about their common personality traits. Goblins tend to be greedy, just like you said. They like to hoard little trinkets and gold. And goblins are very like me first. That's why I think a lot of times you'll see the cliche very golem-like, where they speak about themselves in the third person.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's very common, I think, with goblins.
Golem's not a goblin.
No, but he's he has a lot of goblin characteristics.
He was hanging out near goblins.
Yeah, he was just
orcs.
he was a halfling type creature that was transformed by the evil of the ring over I think like 500 or 600 years.
Just kind of that. Inadvertently took on characteristics that were goblin-like.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Tolkien was just trying to create his own unique creature there. It just has a lot of similarities to goblins. It's not in any way related to goblins. They are very cowardly creatures, which is because they're so small. And it's why goblins are all about large numbers. Like, you almost will never find a goblin alone. Like, that is exceptionally rare. They stick together because they're stronger together.
They're even when they're like outposted in like guard position, they're in little groups of like 3 and stuff like that.
Right, exactly, because they know that in this harsh, scary world that is Dungeons and Dragons, like they stand no chance alone.
Right.
They're also very clever, which is an interesting attribute because they're usually pretty feral or like uneducated.
But they can like build.
They are builders.
Yeah.
They are trap makers. They are booby trappers. They are maze makers. Like, they trick out their
That's like a survival tactic, I'm sure.
It's a survival tactic, and they trick out their layers, their cave dwelling or their ruin dwelling, wherever it is that they're making their home. It's usually some nasty ass trap filled maze, so that adventurers can't just roll in and take them all out.
Right.
And they're very clever. Like, they're very mechanically minded. They're good with traps. They're good with stuff like that. And I've seen that taken to the extreme in certain D&D settings. The first one that comes to my mind is actually World of Warcraft, where the goblins on the Horde side, the Horde faction, are like what Tinker Gnomes are on the Alliance side of things. And like they're building the airships. They're like tool wielders and like they're inventors and innovators and whatnot, and I like that. I think
that's
pretty
who
cool.
you're going to build your shit.
Exactly, you want goblin made stuff,
Cool.
and I think that's really cool.
Goblins making weapons and stuff like that. Or is that something they're
not
like, trying
in
to
D&D.
do?
Not in D&D, they're not. But in Harry Potter, goblins are very clever, very shrewd.
Yeah.
And they are crafters of magic items and whatnot. And inherently magical, which is not a D&D-esque thing. I don't really know where Rowling got her specific goblin inspiration, but I think it's a really cool iteration of goblins.
Just took goblins and were like, well, everything I do is fucking magical.
Yeah, so
like,
why not them too? Yeah.
Everything. Here's the sponge filled with magic and wipe
there you go.
all over everything I do.
There you go.
Because literally, like, there's just this huge divide. Like, if you're not magical, you're a muggle. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
pretty much.
And
Yeah.
if you are not a muggle, you're
magical.
So if you're a goblin, guess what? You got some magic going on.
Yeah, it's true. I think in the Harry Potter universe, goblins are forbidden from wielding wands, even though they are wand makers.
Yeah,
they are wand makers.
Yeah,
but they
wizards
can't use them.
are tyrants.
Yeah, they are. They're fucking assholes. I was like reading a lot of lore. I was like, damn, I didn't realize these wizards are dicks.
Well, that's why Harry Potter is the Jesus of the universe, because he's
Right.
he's kind
not
of
a
all
dick
and stuff.
He's like, why can't we all just get along?
What do you mean they can't have wands? That seems kind of lame.
bogus. Yeah.
That's why they're into him, because the goblins are the ones in Harry Potter that run the bank, right?
They do, and
Okay.
I was about to say, like, okay, so with Harry Potter goblins, one of the things that they do share with D&D goblins is they're greedy. They like to hoard
money,
and again, they're very and
they laid their shit, their Gringotts with booby
very
traps.
clever via booby traps,
Hella booby traps.
just all the machinery going on, all the magical machinery,
Yeah.
like again, very clever, very handsy,
and enhanced with magic.
and enhanced with magic.
You'd probably rather deal with non-magical goblins, right?
Yes. Goblins usually aren't too magically inclined, except for sometimes they are. Like oftentimes, goblin tribes will be ruled over or led by a shaman or a witch doctor
Like
or
the
a
lead
priest
goblin
or a druid.
that got
Yeah.
their hands on some magic power.
Or that too. Yeah, goblins they're a cryptocracy. They rule through might, and they are generally nasty little bullies. Like they're nasty little fuckers.
and magic is might.
Yeah, magic is might.
Just
definitely.
throw these Harry Potter references all over the place.
Yeah. So they're mean to all creatures, whether they're bigger or smaller, and they're mean to themselves too. They're mean to each other.
Yeah,
and they
they're
bully
kinda
each other.
assholes.
Yeah, they're very much assholes. And they rule through strength, even though they're not usually that strong. But that's why when hobgoblins or bugbears come into a mix,
They're
goblins
top
immediately
tier.
submit, and you're in charge now. And then of course usually hobgoblins and bugbears are also very bully-esque.
Because
and
watch
they
my
beat each other
two-handed
and-
battle axe attack across like multiples.
Yeah,
Just take a bunch out at
exactly.
once.
Another cool thing about goblins, I think this is probably my favorite trait when it comes to goblins, is they have a very interesting relationship with nature. They are beastmasters a lot of the time,
that's interesting.
specifically with rats, wolves, and wargs. Which I don't know if you know what a warg is, but they're like.
I don't.
Do you know what a dire wolf is?
Yeah, I have an idea. It's like really big wolf, right?
Yeah, really big wolf.
Yeah.
A warg is a similar size as a dire wolf, but more, and it's very wolf-like, but it has like an ugly, nasty-looking face for a wolf, and it's like bigger and bulkier, and they're like inherently evil.
Oh,
But goblins have an affinity for all three of these creatures, and
they
just-
can like kind of tame them.
they tame these creatures, and that's why goblins will often be depicted as wolf riders or warg riders.
So the first arc of the Adventure Zone is making a lot more sense to me. Good
Oh.
job, Griffin, because like he had a bugbear in there, Clark.
Oh yeah,
and
Clark
then
was in there. Yeah,
They had wolves at their command.
yeah, but
That got thrown
the
into
reason
the fire.
that
Why did
that
you
was
throw my
so
wolf into the fire?
Oh yeah, that was the moment I knew that I loved that podcast. I was like, yes, okay, but off the Adventure Zone. One note on that is the reason that that's so D&D-esque is because that was literally from the starter kit of D&D.
That's right, you told me
Yes,
that.
Yes, so
That's cool.
But yeah, there you go. Yeah, see, it all makes sense. There it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, they tend to be wolf riders. They tend to be warg riders. And I remember a very specific monster in 4th edition D&D was I don't remember if it was called the Ratomancer, but it was basically a goblin that had a swarm of rats at his command.
Oh,
And it would
shit.
just do what he wanted. I was like, this is hilarious and awesome at the same time. I love it.
What if they were all that rat from the beginning of Mission Impossible? The one in the air duct.
I've not seen that movie.
Okay, so you know the scene where Tom Cruise is hanging from the ceiling?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a guy in an air vent that's holding his rope, and while he's up there, and I don't know why there would be like, I don't know, government facility. There's just the fattest motherfucking rat I've ever seen walks by him through like in the air vent. He's got to like, and he lets the rope go a little bit while it's happening.
Yeah,
And he, like,
you showed me this. I remember.
That's the scene where he's like, whoa, like he like almost hits the lasers.
Yeah.
I hope they're those rats. Sorry for going
maybe,
on a tangent there.
maybe they could be. I don't know.
I wish they would be, because that would be really scary.
Yeah.
Well, fat, nasty rats.
Okay, so one thing I miss about 4th edition, and I love 5th edition. I, without a doubt, think it's the best edition, like, to date. But one cool thing about 4th edition was they had very specific monsters.
Okay.
Like again, like this Ratomancer goblin. Like, there isn't that in 5th edition. I would have to, like, really homebrew it up and make that happen.
Like a specialized goblin,
yeah,
basically.
there was, like, specialized versions of all monsters. And, like, if I wanted goblins to challenge you guys at level 11, like, I would have options for, like, really souped up goblins with, like, and the reason they're all souped up and, like, all crazy and powerful. And I could throw those at you. In 5th edition, I cannot do that. You guys will trot all over goblins. That's why you guys have never faced goblins, because you guys started at level 3 and you guys were already beyond goblins.
We're past goblins at that point.
Yeah. Which is disappointing to me, because I love goblins. Goblins are my second favorite mob, or my second favorite, like, beginner, like, swarm creatures to throw at players, because they are, I don't know, there's something charming about these small little nasty wicked imp creatures that'll just fuck your day up. Like, I love that. And there's a ton of them. It's nice. As a DM, but as a player, it's not so nice. My favorite would probably be, I don't know what it is about the undead, but I love throwing like level 1 zombies and level 1 skeletons at creatures, at players, and that to me is a load of fun.
The zombies have the higher HP, right, than a skeleton?
I don't know. Probably.
I think because I reskinned for that fight you guys did in my game. I reskinned all those. I reskinned a group of skeletons and a group of, I think, zombies, and one had like a lot higher HP, like double the HP of the other one,
that makes sense. They're a bag of HP, a bag of flesh, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, but back on goblins. So yeah, they have an affinity for wolves. They have an affinity for wargs and rats, and oftentimes you'll see like druidic or shaman-esque leaders of these goblin tribes.
Okay.
And I always like that. So in my world, goblins are less evil. They are nasty little creatures a lot of time, but they're not evil inherently. Like, I would say they're just like really neutral creatures, or they're just creatures trying to make their lives, just trying to live.
Yeah, because they're mostly to themselves. They're very tribal.
They're usually led in my world by like medicine men or tribe-like leaders, like druids, shamans, stuff like that. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some nasty, evil goblins in my world too, but like I like to give everyone a chance. I don't like the idea that things are inherently evil. It's why when we do the tiefling episode, I'm going to go on a tirade about how people need to shut up about tieflings, because I think they're a cool race, and I'll go on to explain why.
Nature versus nurture.
I get irritated with people that complain too much about like everyone wanting to play drow, because like we've talked about how players like to be new players like to be really cool, brooding, dark, and dexterous, and fast, and they get drawn to the dark elf almost immediately, and that's okay. We need to let that go. We were all there at one point when we started playing this game, and that yes, dark elves are usually inherently evil in vanilla D&D, without a doubt. And if you're playing vanilla D&D, then yeah, drow should not be a player character race, but to each game belongs to the DM that's running that game. And in my world, there are options for good drow, and that's okay. But again, back to goblins.
I was having some problems with a drow, like how to make that a campaignable thing with like its inherent disadvantage and stuff in sunlight.
Right.
I just had to like basically erase that part.
Yeah, we'll go over like I want to do an entire episode on reflavoring and homebrewing and tweaking and stuff, and we'll do that later. But let's get back to goblins. So goblins and religion. We're going to talk about goblins and religion here for a minute,
because that hasn't crossed my mind yet.
Okay, goblins have their own goblinoid pantheon, or at least they did at one point, until a badass mean motherfucker named, I hate saying this name, Maglubiet the Mighty.
Maglubiet the Mighty.
There, you said it so well. Like I can never fucking say the word. Maglubiet.
Your enunciation of it helped me.
Well, there we go. You're welcome. So Maglubiet Maglubi. We're just going to call him the Big M. So the Big M shows up, and he fucking annihilates the Goblinoid pantheon.
Oh, what?
Yeah, he just slays the shit out of them.
What, in like another plane? Like he goes to the
It doesn't really get into
the
lore, but it's so long ago it doesn't really matter anymore. He's the Goblinoid god now.
Oh, okay.
And
cool.
while hobgoblins worship this dude out of like zeal and fervor and reverence, like they're on this dude's jam. They love this dude. Goblinoids do it strictly out of fear, and they usually have existential crises when it comes to this guy, because like they know when they die they're at this dude's whim, and they don't like it, but they're screwed.
You're just going to goblin heaven.
Goblin hell. Yeah, you're going to goblin hell, and you're going to serve in his army, and you're probably going to die doing it.
An old goblin laying on his deathbed, like, I don't want to go to goblin
hell. I know,
hell.
it's really sad. I'm like, damn, no wonder these goblins are so mean. They got such a bad rap.
Fucking Maglubian.
But yeah, this is D&D. This is vanilla lore I'm talking about.
Oh my god, have you seen Little Nicky?
Yeah, I love that movie.
When the part where he's torturing Hitler with pineapples.
Oh yeah,
pineapples in his ass. I just thought about Maglubian putting
it would
pineapples.
I imagine he would be into that. Yeah. Okay, so this dude, this good deity slays the Goblinoid pantheon, and he is their pantheon now. And I think there's other deities that fall within the pantheon or whatever. I'm not familiar with them, so I'm not going to speak on them now. Maybe another episode later on. But he rules. He's a god of tyranny, and he rules through fear. In past editions of D&D, hobgoblins and goblins worshipped the god Bane, who was also the god of war and tyranny. The lore wasn't quite the same, though. This is like old school, true to D&D lore with Maglubiet the Mighty.
I'm Bane.
So.
That's my name.
Oh God, jeez, yeah. I actually like Bane as a deity and as
not that Bane though.
Not that Bane though. What were you thinking?
He's juicing.
Yeah. Oh God,
this god is juicing.
He uses the venom. Yeah, the venom juice or whatever. But okay, we are going on too many tangents this episode. So one cool thing, or not, there's many cool things, but one really choice thing that I really like from this whole mythos of the goblin religion is there is a creature called a nilbog, which is goblin spelled backwards. Okay. And nilbog, the legends go that the nilbog is the last remnant of a slain goblin deity that Maglubiet destroyed. He was a goblin deity of trickery, mischief, and stuff like that. And
some key goblin traits.
Yeah, some key goblin traits, absolutely. And the deal is that there is always a random possibility that a nilbog could show up amongst a goblin tribe if there's too much like nasty tyranny and bullying going on.
Kind of come balance shit out a little bit, or what?
A little bit. So what happens is goblin tribes are very caste-like, and there's people at the top. There's goblins at the bottom. The goblins at the bottom are called pariahs, and they're like the outcasts. They're the dim-witted. The slaves are given the shittiest jobs.
Okay.
And they're usually bullied pretty hard.
Okay.
And so what happens is this unnamed god, the goblins refuse to give a name because they're afraid that if they give their deity a name, Maglubiet will be able to get hold of this name and kill it.
Oh, yes. Shit.
So they don't give it a name. And what happens is if there's a goblin that's being particularly bullied, there's a chance he might be transformed into a nilbog, which a nilbog is basically a goblin that takes on very Jester-like or Loki from Norse mythology type traits, and given inherent magical abilities to cause trickery and mayhem and chaos among his tribe.
Oh, like you should not be treating the lowly like the way you are. So let me like turn this shit around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
And the nilbog cannot be killed.
What?
You can chop off its head; it will come back to life.
It's like the immortal Tanuki.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what that is, but yeah.
In 3D Mario World, you can become. You know what the Tanuki is?
Nope.
It's the feather. You've seen Super Mario 3, like the cover where he's got the little tail.
Yeah.
That thing is called the Tanuki.
Oh, okay.
And in Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U, you can be the immortal Tanuki, which is that suit in white, and you cannot be.
Oh, yeah,
you cannot be
I've
killed.
seen that.
You can fall off and die. Still,
right.
But
Well, they have that in. I played. What was it? Super Mario 3D for the Wii U. Yeah, they had that form.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
yeah, you are the immortal Tanuki.
Exactly. That's exactly what the nilbog is. And sometimes what tribes do in order to ward off a nilbog from being born amongst their ranks is they will appoint one goblin as a jester. I think it might just be called a Jester, but there might be a title for the position.
Okay.
But the Jester in Goblin Society is an untouchable. The Jester is allowed to do whatever he pleases.
What?
To whoever he pleases.
What?
And no one can retaliate for fear of bringing the wrath of a nilbog.
That's ridiculous.
So I think that's really cool lore. I think that's awesome. I've never got a chance to use any of this in D&D campaign because usually players move on from goblins pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I would like to have a more goblin-centric, like maybe mini campaign, and I would love to bring in nilbogs and a bunch of other stuff. It'd be really cool.
So there's never really more than one nilbog?
No, there's always one nilbog.
Well, not more than one though.
No, there usually isn't. That from what I see, it's
one.
only one possessed goblin that becomes a nilbog.
Oh, it's possessed?
Yes, it's transformed, possessed. It's
Okay,
got
I
a
see
piece
what
of
you
a
mean.
god in it. You
Yeah.
know, like at what point did it stop being Gobby the Goblin, and
Right.
now it's like something beyond.
My
but-
knowledge is vast.
Yes,
Nearly
I know.
infinite.
I know everything. But all this talk of nilbogs is getting me really tired,
Gobby's
so
dead.
I think
I'm
it's
nilbog.
time for a short rest.
Cool, yeah. I'm down to rest.
All right, let's do it.
This is the part where we take a break and thank everybody once again so much for coming to listen to the show or watch the show, whatever it is you're doing out there. Can't thank everybody enough. I'm so stoked on doing this. This has been a great time, and to see the good responses coming in, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it, and again, we're having a blast doing this. And I think the most important thing for us is like the great feedback we're getting. We love it. Thank you guys so much.
I think we got some people that we're going to shout out to.
Yeah, we got some shouting out to do. As most of you probably already know, we are running a contest up until March 30th, where we are giving away 2 copies of Tales from the Yawning Portal, the newest D&D book coming out. I think on April 4th it comes out. And to enter this contest, all you have to do is tweet out a link to our show to your followers with the hashtag Dungeoncast, and I will add you to the list of people who are in this to win it. So we're going to do a shout out of the people who have done so. I'll begin. So we want to shout out and thank Maddie C47. We want to thank Malchior. We want to thank M. Shawaker, and we want to thank Zootlocker.
And I got some here. I want to thank Shiv Scene Brace, PD Podcast, Core Belote or Belote, can't decide which one I like better, and Axebane.
I want to thank Asako So, Nick Randio, F. Patton, and Brad Mc1999.
But Brad Mc99 is on my sheet.
He must have tweeted twice.
I'm going to thank his ass twice. Builders In, thank you. Willinator02, fucking love that shit. Rum Leech, very clever. And Brad Mc1999, you get 2 shout outs. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Mc1999.
And this is gonna be the last episode that goes up before the contest draws to an end. At least I think it is. So hopefully I'm right with that. So this is your last week to get on board the contest. So if you again want to be on this contest, if you want to win signed copies of Tales from the Yawning Portal, all you got to do is tweet out a link to our show with the hashtag Dungeoncast.
Yeah. So if you want to tell somebody about our show that you think will like it, that is what we're going for right now. If you could help us out and just let somebody know that you think would like the show, point them in our direction.
Yeah. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies.
Tell your mom, tell your mom's friends.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Yeah. So we want to let you know that you can find our show on soundcloud.com/thedungeoncast. You can find us on YouTube if you just search the Dungeoncast and watch us there. You can find us on iTunes or anywhere else you get your podcasts. And if you want to leave some comments on any of that stuff, leave us some reviews on iTunes. That really helps the show get some traction. But mostly we just want you to tell your friends that you think would be into the show.
Yeah.
Point them our way. Yeah, word of mouth. That's all I think we really need.
Yeah. Also, if you aren't following us on Twitter and you want to know more about like upcoming stuff, I would definitely say follow us on Twitter, because like on Twitter I will tend to put out polls for like what's the next race episode you guys are looking for? What's the next monster episode? Or do you guys have any questions for us? So if you want in on all that, follow us on Twitter and add us to your feed.
Oh yeah,
we'll see that.
I think we're gonna start doing a part of the show where we start taking questions off of Twitter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
User submitted questions. So if you want to ask us a question, we'll go ahead and shout you out and answer it on the show.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, reach out to us and let us know, and we'll talk about you, and we'll talk about what you want to talk about. Let's see, was there anything else that we want to do? Oh, I did want to let people know that officially the show comes out on Monday. I usually put the audio out on Sunday night, and the video is usually up on Sunday night or Monday morning. But officially the show comes out on Monday. So if you were wondering about that, that's when we do it.
Yeah. Drop it on Monday.
I upload it to SoundCloud, and the RSS feed takes care of the rest. But speaking of rest, I think this one's over.
Yep. I think we're all rested up.
All right, let's go back to the show.
Back to the show. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about Goblin Society, because remember at the beginning of the episode I said one of the most important things about these humanoid type monsters is that they are people and they have like societies, and
and they're tyrannical within their own kind.
Ranks. Well, also outside their own kind too, because these guys are little assholes most of the time. But before we get into
are goblins like enslaving people?
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of slaves. Usually they're not enslaving humanoids because humanoids are too big and hard to control. But like there are slave level goblins, and we will kind of get into that. And they operate on both a critocracy type society, but also they have like a caste system, which we'll get into. But before we get into that, did you have any questions on stuff we've covered for goblins so far?
I mostly just want to know where typically you find goblins in like your vanilla D&D map setting.
Yeah, you're usually going to find them in caves, I think is the big one, like caves. But I often see them in like forests a lot of the time.
Okay, just like when you say that they're in when you say that they're in like forests or swamps, like, so I can see how they would like dwell in a cave. Like there's like pockets cut out of rock and stuff like that. Maybe that they would like bunk in or whatever.
Yeah,
but in a forest setting, what are they doing?
Well, I mean, they're usually going to try and find a cave in the forest setting, but also,
okay.
I would prefer to get a little more creative in the woods, and I would set them in like maybe they're up in the trees and they got a little like tree society up there, or maybe they like
because they can build like tree houses and stuff like that.
Or they can make like little like a picture like almost like a maze type hive with like thorny spindle thorn and stuff like that.
Keep people from going into certain areas.
Yeah, and that
like
again, we're starting to like lean more towards like Fey type stuff.
Yeah, and it's so open in a forest that like you want a way to like maze people in or set traps in some way.
Well, that's the thing too. Like forests aren't necessarily very open at all. Like so a lot of times the trees are very close together, and it's hard to traverse forests. So I imagine goblins like it in places like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can find goblins pretty much anywhere. Mountains, swamps, like they're all over the place. Like in the sewers of cities. Like,
shit.
Yeah, they run a whole goblin thieves guild down there.
Don't go down in the sewer, darling. You'll get eaten by goblins.
Indeed.
And you in D&D, you actually might.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so generally speaking, goblins are going to have a caste type society with people at the top in the highest caste and people at the bottom in the lowest caste. And it's usually divided in like 3 or 4 different caste systems, with the top being like the leader, which is usually like the best warriors or best warrior, or like the spellcaster, like, or spellcasters, I guess.
Okay.
Maybe the religious leaders, the priests, the most skilled individuals too. Like that you might find like if there's like a weaponsmith among the goblins, like that dude might be near the top. Treated the best and
making
have
weapons.
to do the least. Yeah, I mean just making weapons.
It's gonna help you defend yourself.
Yeah. So that caste is called the Lasher caste. And again, they're the nobility. They're the high ones. They're the ones in command.
Got it.
They're the ones bullying, not being bullied.
Got it. Yeah.
Right below them is the hunter caste, which is pretty self-explanatory. They're going to be the hunters, the beast handlers. They're also going to be a lot of fighters and warriors. And stuff
Those
like
are the
that.
guys going out and catching some direwolves.
Yeah, and the hunters and the lashers are the ones that you, as a player character, are going to be dealing with in combat situations. These are the ones that will fight back.
Lashers. Okay.
Obviously, if they're caught solo, they're going to run, but if they're in a group, they're going to fight you.
Damn, there's a lot of goblins.
Yeah, a lot of goblins. Then you start getting into the lower castes. You got like the Gatherer class, which is the most common class. It's going to be your average goblin, the cooks, the workers, the food gatherers, stuff like that.
So what kind of respect level do they receive?
Like very low.
Oh.
Like they get treated like shit by the hunters and the lashers. And,
damn, you're treating your food. See, this is the thing. Like, you don't want to treat your people handling your food like garbage because they're handling your food.
Right.
And food can make you sick.
Goblins will eat anything. They don't give a fuck.
Damn. Can goblins get food poisoning?
I mean, I'm sure they can.
Because if I were like a lower tier goblin and I was real pissed and I was handling some food, I might poop on it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that happens. But at the same time, this is just goblin society. It's just the way it is. Like, it's the way it's always been. And unfortunately, the way it will continue to be throughout all D&D iterations.
Are a lot of these guys in the lower caste, like, just kind of accept their fate?
I would imagine so. Goblins are very submissive.
Okay.
When it comes down to
because they have some fear baked into them.
They got fear baked into them. I mean, they're ruled by the god of tyranny.
Right.
So their society is based around tyranny.
Yeah, based off of having like one entity at the top.
Exactly. And then in Goblin society, the Gatherers are not the lowest class or caste. Yeah, they're treated like shit. But I think one of the things that keeps them in line is there's a caste below them called the Pariahs, and they are like the mutated goblins, or the really stupid ones, or the ones that are just
fucking lepers.
The lepers, the ones that have been super outcast.
Okay.
And they're slaves usually, and they're treated horribly by everybody.
So they're cleaning.
They're cleaning. They're the ones like doing the nasty labor and the toughest labor, and they're just totally dispensable.
Dang.
And it is among this caste that a nilbog is usually born.
Like, as we are moving rock in our cave out of this new place that we want to go, rock is falling and crushing the plebes, and it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And
hey, other guy, clean up the goo of that guy you knew.
I don't really get into this like nitty gritty dark stuff when it comes to my D&D world. Again, goblins in my world aren't usually inherently evil, even though they can be pretty nasty.
More neutral.
They're more neutral, chaotic neutral. But like, again, this is your monster lore from vanilla D&D. Like, this is like, if you're not making up your own goblins and you're just taking D&D stuff, like, this is it. So yeah, goblins are nasty, wicked creatures, and they run a tyrannical society, and if they're not being bullied, they are bullying, and there is no in between for them.
Right. Okay.
Obviously, there are a lot of other D&D campaign settings, like official campaign settings, where this is not the case. I think in Forgotten Realms, there's actually a lot of goblin adventurers that like kind of reject their society and go off to be adventurers. They're very rare because, again, goblins like to stick together, but it happens. I think it's because of campaign settings like that is why goblins as PC characters are so widely accepted. When I'm online, no one ever hates on goblin characters. They sure as shit hate on a lot of other races, which I find interesting because goblins are never part of the player's handbook, and people seem to run them and not get a lot of hate. And I think that's fine. They shouldn't get hate, because I think running goblin NPCs is awesome, or PCs is awesome. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's all I got on goblins, Brian. Oh, well, I got a couple other things, I guess.
Well, let's talk about those.
Okay. Well, I was just going to talk a little bit about how, like, goblins are such a staple when it comes to fantasy creatures that you really do see them across, like, just all the fantasy franchises.
Oh, yeah.
Legend of Zelda, which I'm wearing a hat for right now. Like
Hokoblin.
Moblins, or the Bokoblins, yeah.
Bokoblins, Hokoblins?
Bokoblins. They got all kinds of, like, Oblin iterations. Like,
yeah,
there's
they're goblins.
Literally like 7 or 8 of them. But Moblins are kind of like Tolkien goblins, where they're like, they ride that border between orc and goblin a lot of the time.
Where are those from?
They're from the original game, and they're throughout all of the games. They started off more goblin-like, but nowadays they're more big and burly and orc-like.
Okay.
And they're the original Oblin, if you will. Now the Bokoblins are definitely more goblin-like, and they're all the way up to the newest iteration of the game. But again, just like, it's just a really common trope, if you will, these goblin-like creatures. I think of the goblins from the Labyrinth. Or Labyrinth.
That's right.
Labyrinth. Which with their Goblin King and their, little tricksy creatures.
That's right.
He kind of bullies them a lot.
David Bowie's a goblin,
yeah,
actually.
He's like the most handsome goblin ever born. And he just... Actually, I don't think he is a goblin. He's just their king.
He's just their king.
He's not a goblin. Okay. He's just their king. And he bullies the shit out of them.
Is he a thing other than David Bowie?
I would say David Bowie in the Labyrinth playing David Bowie, the Goblin King, is an archfey creature. He's definitely
he's
an archfey.
archfey.
An archfey, whatever.
So it's reaching because you said goblins are kind of can be fey.
They can be fey. They're usually tied to the fey. They usually live in the Feywild. Yeah.
So like,
Where they
that's
are
super interesting because like when we did the Fey episode, we didn't really touch on goblins did we?
Oh yeah, we talked a little bit about how they can be found in the Feywild, and that they're usually unseelie. And we talked.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
We were talking about how like I think we had a scenario where like what about a Feywild desert in the Feywild, and I was like, goblins could come out at night and yada yada
cool.
yada.
Okay,
so,
I like that.
So, yeah, goblins can be found in the
goblins
Feywild.
are goblins nocturnal? Like, is that a thing?
They can be. They usually have dark vision
because they're in they're in caves.
Exactly.
And
Who knows what
forests.
their circadian rhythms like? I have no idea.
That's up to you, the DM.
But yeah, so outside of that, I don't think I got anything left in my noggin on goblins that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, no, we talked about Gringotts a little bit. We talked about.
I know what I want to talk about. Let's talk a little bit about handling these little guys in a fight because
they're coming at you in numbers.
They're coming at you in numbers, but if you just put together a combat according to the DMG the way you should, and just throw like 5 goblins at 5 players, or maybe 6 goblins at these players.
Yeah.
There's a chance that
we're talking about
players
low
level
players,
1,
right?
level 1 or level 2. I mean, there's a chance that they could overwhelm the players because of the nature of low level gameplay in this game.
Yeah, if you don't have
and
a
there's
healer
a chance
or
that it goes
buff.
and then there's a chance it goes the other way,
right?
Where the players just slaughter these goblins.
So says the D20.
Exactly. And one thing I'd like to note that goblins aren't the type of creatures that just throw themselves into combat. They're going to do guerrilla-like tactics. They're going to strike and they're going to flee. They're going to come back in. And if you're doing that stuff, you're going to make these goblins like a real terrifying force of nature that makes it a little more understanding why these guys can terrify towns and raid towns and get away with it. Because that's what goblins do. Like, they usually raid settlements all the time.
Okay,
they usually
so they're
terrorize towns and people.
How far do goblins stray from home to do that?
Not too far, usually. They're, they're on wolfback or whatever.
So they're coming, like, down out of the mountain and shit
usually
to, like, a town.
And attacking farms.
Fuck, man.
Like,
these people are like, we're going to get my shotgun out for the goblins.
Yeah, except for there are no shotguns
exactly.
in this world. So.
Get my bolts.
Yeah.
Try to, in the dark, just...
Yeah, so goblins are a real terror to common folk. And if you're running them in combat correctly with, like, these guerrilla type tactics and being cunning and clever and using their traps and whatnot, it becomes more real and understandable as a player to be like, oh shit, these goblins are no joke. Like, they're not to be underestimated. But at the same time, be careful because level 1 is a very dangerous level for player characters and it's very easy to die.
True.
But yeah, I think that's
squishy little babies.
That is all I got on goblins now officially. I mean, I'm tapped out. That is all my Goblin.
Yeah, we touched on combat and stuff. I like goblins. That was cool. I always like beating up on some goblins in video games and things like that.
They're fun little mobs to wipe up, clean up.
All right, let's call it a game then. That's
all right.
I feel solid on it.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Calling it a game. See you guys later. Thanks a lot. And we have anything we want to put in here at the end?
Nah.
All right. Keep a lookout for those tweets. Just want to remind everybody, tweet out a link to our show and you're entered in a contest to win books. Tales of the Yawning Portal. I think it comes out on April 4th, and we want to give away 2 of those. So, your odds are a little better than our last giveaway with Volo's guide. And,
because there's 2.
There's 2. It's
that's double the odds.
Double the odds. I don't know how odds work.
I don't know.
But anyway, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.
You guys have a good one.